Welcome back to the channel, my friends. It's your boy Steve from Straight Fire Picks, breaking down all your NFL spreads and totals bets for Week 7 of the NFL. We're going to go through each game. We're going to have a spread and a total pick for every single game. Let's lock in and have a great Week 7 in the NFL.
Well, my presence isn't real. It's another bad one like this is scale. It's straight fire. All my bets straight from. You're in the house that cab late now. Straight fire.
As always, my friends, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button for me. Always appreciate that. On the road to 10,000 subscribers. Excited for Week 7 in the NFL, guys. A lot of good matchups. Should be a lot of fun. My Lions are playing on Monday night versus the Bucs in a potential preview of the NFC Championship. I'm looking forward to that. So that should be a lot of fun to watch that one there on Monday night. Another doubleheader on Monday night, which is interesting. And got some good divisional matchups here as well. Kicking off with the Steelers and Bengals on Thursday night. So that should be interesting as well. Quick recap from last week. We ended up going 7-8, both against the spread and on our totals picks. Definitely not the week that we wanted, but I will say that we actually closed it out pretty well in the late 4 o'clock games and bleeding into Monday night. We actually ended up doing pretty good towards the end of the week to make it reasonable. Because we did not start well at all as far as any of our picks against the spread or the totals in the early games. So, got to lock in on our early games this week, guys. And obviously, hopefully we can get this off to a good start and get some momentum going and have a great week both on totals and spread. So, let's get right into our games here for this week. It's going to start on Thursday Night Football with the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. This is your Thursday Night Football game. Bengals are 5.5-point dogs in this one. Total set to 42.5. So this is obviously a divisional matchup. Aaron Rodgers playing very well now for the Steelers. They're on a 3-game winning streak, coming off a 23-9 home victory over the Cleveland Browns. Cincinnati coming off a pretty competitive game up in Green Bay. They lost 27-18. But it was actually 24-18, and they had an opportunity to get off the field on third down to get the ball back to Flacco for a chance to win. So that game was actually pretty close, and we actually picked the Bengals on the spread. That was one of our spread picks, and that was in the later game, and I think we hit the total on that too. We had the over 44.5, and there was 45 points. So that game we did pretty good on last week. We capped the Bengals pretty well last week. So coming back home now, 5.5-point dogs. The season isn't quite lost yet for Cincinnati. This division is interesting. This division to me is still very winnable, even from really anybody's point of view. The Steelers are leading the division, but you feel like there's something there with the Steelers that isn't quite, like they're vulnerable. I think a lot of people feel like the Steelers are definitely vulnerable. And when they go up against quality competition, they're going to be able to keep up. They have won the last 3 weeks, so that is definitely something to keep in mind. But here coming back home with Joe Flacco now quarterback for the Bengals, I really do like the Bengals in this spot. I like the Bengals at the very least to cover the spread. I think this would be a pretty close game. At the end of the day, the Bengals actually still have a lot of talent on offense. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are 2 of the best receivers in the NFL. They can give any defense problems. And I think now that you got a quarterback that can actually get the ball downfield to him and Joe Flacco, we saw flashes of that last week. Now he's got another week with these guys. I think the Bengals keep this close at home. There's a lot of people here picking the Steelers to cover, and I get it. The Steelers have definitely looked good the last couple of weeks. But here, I'm going to roll with the home Bengals. It's a divisional game. I think the Bengals get up for this game. I think Joe Flacco does enough to keep them in it, and at the very least, keep it close. So I really like Cincinnati, plus the 5.5, and I like the over as well. Over 42.5 points. Probably like that even more, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, we could still say the Bengals defense isn't great. Rodgers still should be able to score on that defense. And I think Flacco and these receivers on the outside, like I said, will give the Steelers a bit of trouble here. And I think we'll see some points in this one. I really do. I think it'll be pretty close. But I think the Bengals and the Steelers put up some points in this one. Really like that over. And I also do like Cincinnati. Like I said, in a close game, I like Cincinnati to keep it close. So give me the Bengals plus the 5.5 and give me the over 42.5 points. Next game we have on tap, Los Angeles Rams taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars from London. 3-point spread here in favor of the Rams. Jaguars 3-point underdogs. Total set to 44.5. So obviously we saw the Jags at home last week kind of get beat down by the Seahawks. Offensive line didn't play well. Obviously it was not a good game from them. They weren't terrible defensively. They were more just bad, like I said, on the offensive side. In protection, they had a lot of problems there. So taking out a Rams team now that has no Puka Nacua, I think that's a very big deal. Puka Nacua has been pretty much their offense, and now they got to find ways to distribute the ball around. If I was going to take a prop bet, now I haven't looked at his lines yet, but Tutu Atwell is someone I'd be looking at in this game on receiving yards. But I'll look at that closer to obviously Sunday. But I think the Rams are going to struggle offensively. If the Jags can lock in on the run a little bit, make the Rams throw it, being down Puka is a very big deal for this offense. And at the very least, this should be a very close game. We're getting 3 points here with the Jags. So I will take those 3 points on the Jags, the +3. And I like this to be more of a defensive game. Both these defenses can get after it. Jags defense has been pretty solid this year. It forced a lot of takeaways. They played a lot better last week. As far as in yardage last week, they were much better. So I think we could see more of that here in this one. A little bit of a lack of explosiveness now from the Rams. And the Rams offense actually hasn't been that phenomenal the last couple weeks, even with Puka in there. Now you take him out of there, that's one of their bigger weapons. I think they're going to struggle. I think this could be a little bit more of a sloppy game. These games in London have tended to be a lot more sloppy. We saw last week, I don't know what I was doing taking the over in that one. It ended up 13-11 Broncos, 24 points there. So these games in London tend to get sloppy, and now we could see more of that obviously here. And I really like the Jags, the +3, and I like the under 44.5 points in that one. Next game we have on tap, New Orleans Saints traveling to Chicago at Soldier Field to take on the Chicago Bears. Bears 5.5-point home favorites in this one. Total set to 47.5. So, Bears coming off a Monday night 25-24 win. Was definitely the recipients of some gifts there from the Commanders. That late fumble by Krosky Merritt definitely set up that winning field goal on them and their win there on the road. But they played pretty well. I mean, they were in that game, right? They played pretty well from the jump. The Bears offense, did some good things. Even their defense played all right. So here coming back home versus a Saints team that, has been weird in different spots. They've been oddly competitive in some games and then non-competitive in some games, namely versus Seattle. And then New England, they faded in that game, lost 26-14 in that one. So what happens here? Well, I think the Bears are starting to figure it out. I think Caleb Williams is starting to figure it out. I think Ben Johnson is starting to figure it out. And I am a big Ben Johnson fan. I think he's a great coach. I was very sad when he left Detroit, obviously. I think he's a phenomenal coach. Very creative. Puts his quarterbacks in good situations. So I think you're going to continue to see that progression. Things are starting to come together in Chicago a little bit here. We can't ignore it. Obviously, they've won a bunch of games now in a row. But it's 3 straight wins now for the Bears. Being the Cowboys, Raiders, and last week the Commanders. I'm not saying they're the most flashiest of wins. The win over the Cowboys I thought was impressive. And then winning on the road versus the Commanders was obviously impressive. Kind of putting those demons behind them from last year from that game. That Fail Mary game. I like the Bears here. I like the Bears at home. I like what they're doing with their wide receivers. I like what Caleb Williams is doing. We saw DeAndre Swift break out last week. He had over 100 scrimmage yards last week. He was terrific. So they got some nice pieces here. They got a couple young tight ends that are pretty good. Davidson, and I like Cole Kmet as well. So I like what this offense could do. And the defense, like I said, is iffy. But I think they do enough here. I like the Bears to cover the 5.5. And I like that over 47.5 points. Saints defense, no good. Bears defense still needs work. I'm not going to lie about that. They were better. They were okay last week. But we'll still see some points in this one. In these Bears games, we've seen enough points of late. 31-17 versus the Cowboys. The last couple weeks, were they both 25-24 over the Raiders and over the Commanders. Was that 25-24 in both? That might have been 25. So all three overs hit, though, as far as this number, over 47.5. And here, I would argue that, like I said, Saints defense right now, no good. And Spencer Rattler's actually okay at quarterback right now, too. So I think you'll see some points here. But I like the Bears to cover. So give me Bears 5.5, minus 5.5, and the over 47.5 points. Next game on tap. Miami Dolphins traveling to Cleveland in the dog pound to take on the Cleveland Browns. Browns 2.5 point favorites. Total set to 40.5. Ooh, this one's tough. Dolphins have been competitive, but they haven't been playing the greatest of teams. Well, prior to LA, they lost to Carolina on the road, which Carolina at home is 3-0. So I don't know how bad of a loss that really was. Carolina has been a good home team. They've beaten Atlanta, Dallas, and the Dolphins here. So I think we're just instinctively wanting the Panthers to be bad, and they keep surprising us every week. I don't really know what to say about the Panthers. It's weird. They're 0-3 on the road, but they're 3-0 at home. So very interesting there. Browns with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. Curious to see his progression week to week. Obviously, he's playing a defense that is not very good in Miami. Miami is one of the worst defenses in football. That was exemplified on the last drive of the game where they gave up that big run after the catch there to McConkey, setting up the game-winning field goal. I mean, it looked free. As far as the run after the catch, it was embarrassing what the secondary was doing. So, given that, Browns are at home. I like the Browns in this particular spot, minus the 2.5. I think they win this game. That's pretty much what we're taking. It's pretty much a pick'em spread. So I will take the Browns minus the 2.5. I think Quinshon Judkins in this running game is going to be able to have a lot of effectiveness here versus Miami. So I think this Browns offense breaks out a little bit here, gets over 20 points in this one for the first time in a bit. And Gabriel finally shows you some stuff, and I think he's going to look pretty good in this one. So I do like the Browns minus 2.5. I like the over 40.5 because I don't trust the Dolphins defense at all. So I think the defense is going to be bad again. And Tua in this offense is still going to find ways to get the ball down the field and keep this game close, be able to score a little bit. Obviously Tua's he's still a solid quarterback. He's got Waller, Waddle, Achane. It wouldn't really take a lot here. To obviously get to this over, and I think we see this game get to the over in this one. It wouldn't be my most confident pick of the week, but I think we get to the over here, and I think the Browns cover. So give me Browns minus the 2.5 and the over 40.5 points. Next game on tap: Las Vegas Raiders traveling to Arrowhead in Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are 12-point favorites. Total set to 45.5 in this one. So Chiefs have pulled it together. After the 0-2 start, they have won 3 of 4. They're back to 500 at 3-3, with some really big wins in there. You got win over the Detroit Lions this last week, and obviously they beat Baltimore when Jackson was playing. So it looks like the Chiefs have figured it out a little bit here. They had that loss on the road to Jacksonville, but even that game, I think we all thought the Chiefs were going to win that game, and they didn't end up winning it. They still have some issues on the defensive end. But they have figured it out definitely offensively. Mahomes has looked pretty good. This offense is starting to look good again. And they get Rashee Rice back this week off of suspension. So that's obviously big for them. They get their number one receiver back. And the Raiders, guys, this season, for the most part, have been pretty awful. They did get their second win over the Titans last week. We did take the Raiders to cover the spread. And we took the under in that game. And that game went as planned. 20-10. Nothing flashy, though, from the Raiders. They did get the win, like I said. But overall, guys, Geno Smith has been horrible. Put him on the road in Kansas City. I don't think so. I don't see it happening for him. I think this Chiefs defense finds some legs here versus Geno Smith in this Raiders offense. I just don't have any faith in the Raiders to cover versus a good team. Maybe versus a bad team. But versus a good team on the road, I don't think so. The Chiefs, like I said, have figured it out a bit here. And I think they stormroll them here. You get Rashee Rice back. This running game's coming together with Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's looking better each week. These receivers are looking better each week. Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, obviously. Tyquan Thornton's been a weapon for them early season as well. So I really like the Chiefs here to cover, guys. The -12. I know it's a big spread, but I think the Chiefs get it done here at home. And I like the over 45.5. I think obviously Chiefs offense is going to do whatever they want to do against this Raiders defense. I didn't really even touch on that. Raiders defense has been pretty bad this season. So I think Mahomes and company with these receivers, they're healthy now. I think they get this done here versus the Raiders. So I do think the over is going to hit because Kansas City still has a little bit of problems on defense. So maybe the Raiders score enough here to get us to the over. But I think the Chiefs are going to be in the 30-plus category. They're going to be, 31. This could be, 31-17 type of thing. 34, 34-20, something like that. 34-17. I think the Chiefs roll in this one, though, and they score a lot of points in this one. So give me the Chiefs minus the 12 and the over 45.5 points in that one. Next game we have on tap, I would argue is probably the toughest game to pick of the week. Philadelphia Eagles traveling up to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings at US Bank Stadium. Vikings are 2-point underdogs, total set to 43.5. Apparently J.J. McCarthy's practicing, so he might actually be playing in this one. So I think there's a good chance, though, we see one more week at least of Carson Wentz. Should be interesting here. The Eagles coming off a embarrassing road loss to the Giants, in which, once again, their offense looked pretty bad. Saquon Barkley didn't look too good. Hurts didn't look good. There was just a lot of problems offensively there for the Eagles. And defensively, Jackson Dart, Scatabo, they ran all over the Eagles. Scatabo had a lot of success. So trying to figure out what is going to happen here, guys. What do we got here? This definitely is not my favorite game to pick of the week. I will preface that in saying this. But if you're giving me the Eagles as just a 2-point favorite versus a backup in Carson Wentz. Now, we didn't even take into account Carson Wentz, though, is playing against his old team, so there might be a little motivation there. The Eagles, at the end of the day, still have a lot more talent. In terms of Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts. I mean, they have so many big names, it's hard to just not want to take the Eagles here. So I am going to take the Eagles minus the 2. From a talent perspective and a bounce back perspective, they need to get back on track here to kind of silence some of the noise here, because there definitely is some noise now in terms of what are the Eagles doing offensively. But at the end of the day, the season's still young, and the Eagles still did go out on the road and get a tough road win at Kansas City. So this defense can play better, and I think we might see a little bit more of that this week. Seeing them lock in a little bit and do a little bit better. And I'd be surprised if the Eagles just don't try to run Barkley more, honestly, given the struggles, and really try to get this running game going like it should be. I'm not crazy about Minnesota's defense right now. They don't overly impress me. So I think this is a defense we can take advantage of. I think this is a better matchup for the Eagles than it was versus the Giants. Honestly, I think they'll be able to run the ball a little bit here on the road in the dome and get things going a little bit more. So give me the Eagles minus the 2 and give me that under 43.5 points. Both these teams, I think, are going to want to run the ball. Vikings, obviously with Carson Wentz, they're going to want to run that football with Jordan Mason. If you got a weakness on the Eagles defense, it's obviously versus the run right now. So the run definitely sets up an under, kind of grinding it out here. So I think this would be a little bit of a physical game. This is definitely going to play to the under. So I do like that under 43.5. So give me the Eagles minus the 2 and the under 43.5 points. Next game on tap, we got the Carolina Panthers traveling to MetLife to take on the New York Jets. Jets are 2-point underdogs. Total here set to 42.5. So this is a spot where obviously what we talked about it earlier. Panthers are 3-0 at home, 0-3 on the road. And the differential is staggering. They usually get blown out on the road. The Panthers do. So they have not traveled well as of yet. Now, the Jets would probably be their most friendly competition in terms of where they could get a win in the schedule. Just because the Jets are 0-6. Jets are pretty bad. But they are coming off a game versus Denver. Good Denver team, which they lost by 2 and had a chance to win. And just couldn't put a drive there together at the end of the game. But the defense played really well. Defense bounced back. And at the end of the day, I mean, from what we saw from the Jets in week 1, where has this offense been? They were fantastic in week 1 with Fields and Garrett Wilson in this running game. They ended up losing a shootout. But where has the offense been? Why has it been so bad of late? And it has been terrible. Well, I think there's a good chance they could. This is the type of game we could see the Jets bounce back. Obviously, like I said, they're 0-6. I still like their coach, obviously, in Aaron Glenn. He's a player's coach. So it's not like the players don't like the dude. I think the Jets play with some spirit here at home. And this is a spot, the Jets can get a win here versus the Panthers team that's still on the up and coming. But I think the Jets here get their first win of the year. I think the running game gets it going here with Breece Hall. And hopefully the Jets, stick to the run in this one. I think that's something they need to do. They need to establish the run, obviously, with Fields and with Breece Hall. And I think they do a better job here of that. And I think they'll have a little bit more success versus the Panthers defense is not really that great. I mean, it's Panthers defense. It's obviously very beatable. So, yeah, give me the Jets plus the 2 here at home. I think they get their first win of the year. And I think it's going to be relatively ugly. Both these teams, again, like to run the football first. Obviously, Fields and Breece Hall. And then for the Panthers with Rico Dowdle. So, you'll see some running in this one. It'll be a fairly ugly football game, I think. So give me the Jets plus the 2 and the under 42.5 points in this one. Next game on tap, we got the New England Patriots traveling to Tennessee to take on the Tennessee Titans. Titans are 7-point dogs. Total set to 41.5 points. And this one, Patriots coming off a 26-14 win over the Saints on the road. Their second consecutive win on the road. This is a third straight road game. Titans coming off a 20-10 loss there to the Las Vegas Raiders. So, and then also coming off of their coach getting fired as well. So, yeah, this is a spot here where there's a little bit of a trap game here for the Patriots, right? Third straight road game versus a Titans team that could get a little bit of juice from the coach getting fired. Obviously, I don't think they were crazy about the guy. Just listening to some of Cam Ward's comments and different things. So, maybe that gives them a little bit more of an edge here in this one. And maybe we see a little bit better of a performance here from the Titans. And maybe the ability here to hang around. I typically would not trust the Titans to cover any spread. But I think this is an interesting spot with the Patriots playing the third straight road game. And the Titans having a little extra motivation here at home. And also playing against Mike Vrabel. I mean, at the end of the day, Mike Vrabel's not going to be on the field. But obviously, I think there'll be a little bit more juice in the building with Mike Vrabel being there. I think the Titans will want to show up. So I am going to roll with the Titans plus the 7. I think they can hang around here. I'm not predicting them to win, but I think they can keep it close. And, the Patriots stock is definitely up here right now, right? We're selling high, I think. I think this could be a little bit of a dip in the mark here on the Patriots because obviously they've built themselves up. The Bucs are respecting them a lot now for what they did in Buffalo and even what they did last week. They've covered the spread in the last few weeks. So now the stock is up here on the Patriots. I think this is a good time to sell, honestly, in a third straight road game versus a team that should be jacked up. Just have a little bit more energy in the building. Like I said, I don't think it's crazy, but I think it's close, right? I think the game will be relatively close. So give me the Titans plus the 7. Give me the under 41.5 points. This is another one where I could see it being a little bit more ugly, right? Titans, if they're going to keep it close, they're going to want to muck this game up a little bit and make it kind of ugly, which I think we could see in this one. So Titans plus 7 and the under 41.5 points. Next game on tap in the late window, we have the Giants traveling a mile high to take on the Denver Broncos. Broncos are 7-point favorites. Total set to 40.5. So, Giants fans obviously got a boost last week, getting a big division win over the Eagles. Giants were 7.5-point dogs in that one and won that game straight up and really won that game going away. The running game dominated with Scatterbo and even Jackson Dart. Dart looked great from the pocket. There were a lot of great takeaways there from the offense there for the Giants. And the defense played pretty well. They held Barkley in check and overall did a pretty good job. Like I said, it was definitely a great performance last week from the Giants. They have a little bit of extra rest here going on the road to Denver. So a little extra time to prepare here for the Broncos. Broncos coming back from London with a 13-11 win in a game they easily could have lost to the 0-5 Jets. I'm finding it hard to wrap my head around the Broncos being 7-point favorites. Just given the recency effect and given the rust. I mean, Giants have had, like I said, a week and a half to prepare here. Broncos obviously had to travel back Sunday. You know, obviously their week's going to be a little jacked up. So given all that, I am going to take the Giants plus the 7 here. I don't know why you wouldn't. I would take the Giants plus the 7. It's going to be an ugly game. Both these defenses can play. I think we projected before the season started both these defenses to be top defenses in the NFL. Well, last week they both put on great performances. Now, the Broncos obviously were fantastic last week. They're the reason they won that game single-handedly. So their defense, I think, will show up. And then obviously Giants finally put together a very nice defensive performance versus the Eagles there. So building some momentum here. The Giants team definitely believes now. With Jackson Dart in the locker room, it's definitely having a good effect on them. So I think the Giants go on the road and keep it close. We're not asking for them to win. We're asking for them to cover a plus 7 number, which is very reasonable. So I do like the Giants plus the 7, and I do like the under 40.5. I think this will be a relatively ugly game. The Broncos offense has been so inconsistent. And we still got to figure out this Giants offense a little bit. They're not going to just score it well, obviously, on the Broncos. I'm not saying it's going to be easy on them. I think they do enough with Scatabo in between the trenches to keep this game close. And so, yeah, like the Giants plus the 7 and the under 40.5 points. Next game we got the Colts traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are 1.5 point favorites. Total set to 48.5. This is the Colts' second trip to LA now. They took on the Rams in Los Angeles. Now they're traveling back to take on the Chargers. Same stadium, SoFi Stadium. So they're back here again. Very interesting. Chargers 1.5 point favorites. Like I said, total set to 48.5. I love this Colts team. I don't know how to put it. I love Danny Jones and what he's doing. I love what Jonathan Taylor's doing. I love what the offensive line's doing. I wasn't impressed with the defense last week. I will say that. Their defense definitely could use a little bit of work versus a backup quarterback. They allowed him to. But the Colts offense still put up 31. Danny Jones was still fantastic once again. He's been very consistent over the first 6 games of the year. You could pretty much take his passing yards over every time, and he's been hitting, with the exception, I think, 1 week. He didn't hit his lines. So, I think here versus a Chargers team that obviously got a little loose there versus Miami. They won that game 29-27, but giving up 27 there to the Dolphins, undermanned offensive unit with no Tyreek Hill. I don't have the utmost confidence in the Chargers defense right now. And prior to last week, the Chargers offense was also kind of stalling out too. And even at the end of that game, the offensive line didn't protect well. Let's not forget Justin Herbert made the play, one of the plays of the week, like Baker did, getting out of the pocket. But Herbert was sacked for what it's worth at the end. It would have been a loss for the Chargers straight up. The Dolphins would have won. He was sacked in the pocket, somehow got out of there and got the ball out to McConkey, who took it down the sideline. So his offensive line is not playing well for Herbert right now, and that's going to be a problem. I think here the Colts, to me, have a big advantage in terms of the consistency on offense. I could trust the consistency more with the Colts right now than I can with the Chargers. So with that being said, I'm going to take the Colts plus the 1.5. And I really like the over 48.5 here as well. I think this will be a pretty high-scoring game. Once again, out in L.A. I think Herbert's still going to put up points. Don't get me wrong. But the Colts are going to have a lot of offensive success here. They're just so well-balanced offensively. I think they could beat just about any defense, unless you're on an upper echelon type of defense. They've taken it to every defense this year that's been decent. They took it to Denver. They took it to Arizona last week. And these are good defenses. And the Chargers aren't that good. So I think the Colts once again do what they want on offense, and they do enough on defense to win. But I do think it'll be a higher scoring game. So give me the Colts plus the 1.5 and the over 48.5 points. Next game on tap, we got the Green Bay Packers traveling out to Arizona to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are 6.5-point dogs. The total here is set to 44.5 points. So Packers coming off a game versus the Bengals in which wasn't that impressive, right? 27-18 win, but they did get the win, which is, I guess, the important thing for them. Cardinals coming off a game where they had that game in Indianapolis for a bit. They were leading 24-17. It was looking like Arizona might pull off the upset. And Danny Jones clutched up, and the Colts ended up winning that one 31-27 in a high-scoring affair. It looks like it might be, it's early on in the week. It looks like it might be Kyler Murray starting this week. It looks like he should be back, but we're not sure on that. Could obviously be Brissett, but in either case, Brissett played very well last week. So that was obviously, good for Arizona. I don't think they'll have a quarterback controversy, although some people seem to think there might be one. Brissett is, I think, a backup. And Murray should be a guy that he obviously should have in there. But I haven't been impressed with the Packers' defense in particular of late. But their offense has been doing still enough with Love and company. And with Matthew Golden's breaking out, the wide receiver position was great. Obviously, you got Josh Jacobs. His defense should be better than what it's played. No doubt about that. They weren't particularly good versus Cincinnati last week. They weren't good versus Dallas. So maybe a little bit of a bounce back here for the defense. I do like the Packers to cover the 6.5. I'm going to tell you it's not my most confident pick of the week, just given that we don't have all the information on the Cardinals here on Wednesday. But I would take the Packers to cover 6.5. It's a touchdown on a team that should be competing for the NFC this season in Green Bay. I think everybody knows that. But I do like the over to hit as well. I think the Packers will do what they do offensively. They're going to score. And this Cardinals defense, obviously giving up the 31 last week, they haven't been overly impressive of late. So I think the Packers are going to be able to score. Their offense is just so good. But the defense, maybe gives up a little bit here to Arizona. So I think I can get us to the over. So give me the Packers minus the 6.5, and I do like that over 44.5 points as well here in this one. So Packers minus 6.5 and the over 44.5. Next game on tap, our last one of the 4 o'clock games. We got the Commanders traveling to Dallas and AT&T Stadium to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys 2.5-point dogs. Total set to 54.5. 54.5. Holy cow. This game apparently is going to get rather loose. And we'll see a lot of points. That's the projection anyway, according to the sports books. So, Commanders coming off a tough home loss on Monday Night Football to the Chicago Bears, in which they pretty much gave that game away in the elements. Cowboys coming off a tough loss in Carolina, in which, once again, their defense played horrible. And their defense just continues to be bad. So, what happens here? I think the Commanders right now are a lot more of a team I think you can trust. The Cowboys, I think they have to win absolute shootouts. And when I say shootouts, it feels like they got to score 40 to win, which is just a lot to ask. So I can trust the Commanders defense a little bit more than I can the Cowboys defense. Cowboys defense has just been atrocious of late. That was on display, obviously, there in Carolina. Although they played well against the Jets. I should give them that game versus the Jets. They played fairly decent versus the Jets. They weren't bad in that one. But versus a competent passing attack and Jaden Daniels and what he can do with the weapons he'll have there in Deebo Samuel. Luke McCaffrey's been playing great. So McLaurin McLaurin being out is definitely a concern. But McCaffrey's honestly been filling in nice. Zach Ertz has been really good at the tight end position. So they still got the weapons that you need. Krosky Merritt's been really solid this season outside of that fumble he had last week, that big fumble. So I think the Commanders bounce back here. I think they go on the road here versus Dallas. After that bad home loss, I think this is a team that is still a very good football team. I think they bounce back. So I will take the Commanders minus the 2.5. And I like this game to get crazy. typically, I don't know what it is about high totals. I've been liking taking high totals of late. So give me the over 54.5 points as well here. I think this game gets crazy loose. I think we'll see a lot of points. I just think I think you'll see a little bit of a duel here. Neither defense is particularly great. But at the end of the day, I think the Commanders pull it out in the end and get this cover and get this win here. I think they're definitely a team right now I could trust a little bit more. So give me the Commanders minus the 2.5 and the over 54.5 points. Next game on tap, Atlanta Falcons traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. 49ers are 3-point favorites here at Levi's Stadium. Total set to 47.5. Falcons coming off their biggest win in a long time over the Buffalo Bills, 24-14 on Monday Night Football. As part of that doubleheader, they played great. Bijan ran great. Drake London tore up the Buffalo Bills secondary. That was a great night, obviously, for Atlanta. 49ers coming off a game where they lost another big starter in Fred Warner. So obviously that's big, and they ended up losing the game, obviously 30-19 there to the Bucs. The Bucs were down a lot of players too. So really not many players left on the defense right now for San Francisco. Warner and Bosa are now out, the two best defensive players, so that obviously hurts them. They've been dealing with obviously injuries on the offensive side as well, with George Kittle, Ayuk being out. So there's a lot of injuries for the 49ers here. And versus a Falcons team that I think is starting to come now. I think this is a tough spot for San Francisco, honestly. I think this is a spot where in primetime on Sunday Night Football, I think this team keeps the energy on the road. I think, I might be a little more concerned if this was an early start. But I think because this is a primetime game, I think this team gets up again for it. Obviously, the young guys like to play in the spotlight, and they'll be in the spotlight here in San Francisco, and I think they're going to want to send a message. So, just because Atlanta's a lot more healthy, the defensive front's been playing great for Atlanta. Regardless of who's at quarterback here for the 49ers, whether it's Mac Jones or Purdy, there's no continuity right now with San Francisco. And that's really the issue I have. So many injuries. Offensively and defensively, they're really lacking continuity and obviously lacking a lot of talent too. So I think for me, I have to take Atlanta here plus the 3. I think the Falcons go out on the road, perform well. I think they win straight up in this one. They control this game with the running game. Both teams have great running backs. So I think this is a game where we'll see the line of scrimmage here, looking to establish that line of scrimmage and control it there with the run. Which is why I do like the under. I think you'll see a lot of running of the football once again. I think that's where you want to attack. So you just have that clock moving, grinding out first downs, 3, 4, 5 yards, keeping that clock moving. So, but at the end of the day, I think the Falcons are going to win that battle. I think the Falcons have more. We can rely on the Falcons depth chart a lot more. We got a lot more players in there. So give me the Falcons plus 3, and I do like that under 47.5 points. I think we'll see that under hit here as well. So Falcons plus 3 and the under 47.5. Next game, we have the Tampa Bay Bucs traveling up to Detroit to take on the Detroit Lions. Lions 4.5-point favorites. Total set to 52.5. A lot of injuries here as well on both teams, on both sides. So many injuries. For the Bucs, obviously at wide receiver, Ibuka probably not going to be playing here. Evans might be back though for the Bucs, which might be big for them. Obviously, getting an extra receiver. For the Lions, their secondary is absolutely decimated by injuries right now. So they're going to definitely be down some players in the secondary again. And we saw how that went versus the Chiefs. It did not go well. Mahomes picked them apart, and I think this is another spot where I'm definitely concerned as a Lions fan about Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's having an MVP season. I think everybody knows that. Leading the Bucs to a 5-1 record, making plays all over the field. You guys have been seeing it week to week. He's been consistent. He's been fantastic. And I think here he's obviously set up for success here versus a banged-up Lions secondary. Regardless of who he's throwing the ball to, I think the Lions secondary is going to have trouble. It's Baker right now that's making plays. So obviously you like to see that. Lions obviously offensively, they're great. But on the road versus KC, there definitely was some inconsistency. They ran the ball fairly decent. But just when they had to make plays, they didn't make the plays last week. So coming back home, It's definitely an interesting spot. I'm going to go with the Bucs. I hate to say it as a Lions fan. I have to take the Bucs plus the 4.5. I think they cover. Right now with Detroit, like I said, at some point the injuries just become too much. And I think on the back end they're just going to have too many problems, and I think the Bucs are going to be able to score at will. I think it's going to be a high scoring game for sure. I think the Lions will score pretty much at will as well. But I think this comes down to one possession. I really do. I think it could be the last team that has the football. I think this game comes down to one possession. So I like the Bucs plus the 4.5, and I do like the over here, 52.5 points. I think this game will see it feature a lot of points and a lot of fireworks on Monday Night Football. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. But I do like the Bucs plus the 4.5 and the over 52.5 points. Final game on the slate. Houston Texans traveling to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks 3.5 point favorites. Total set to 40.5. This is honestly probably my favorite game to cap of the week. The one that I could see the most clearly on as far as on the slate. The Texans obviously coming off a bye week, coming off a big win over the Ravens the prior week. But obviously the Ravens were no Lamar Jackson. You can't really make a lot of that win. The Ravens have been awful so far this season. They're 1-5. Traveling up to Seattle in a tough environment. I don't have a lot of trust with the Texans' offensive line. Their offensive line has not played well this season. And they're up against the Seattle front that gave Trevor Lawrence and the Jags a lot of trouble last week. So at home, this is a tough spot for Houston. It really is. I think it's a tough spot. I think Seattle's the real deal. They went out on the road, and I doubted them last week. I took Jacksonville, and I regretted it. Seattle looked fantastic last week, both defensively and at times offensively, obviously with Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba. So both these defenses are good, but as far as offensively, I could put a lot more trust in the Seahawks with Darnold and Njigba. The Texans have been very inconsistent all season, and inconsistency, a nice word. They've been bad for the most part. Like I said, outside of that Ravens game, which I don't take a lot from that because the Ravens defense has been decimated by injuries, and they're terrible. I think the spot, I am going to take the Seahawks minus the 3.5. I think they cover here at home. And they kind of start getting things going a little bit better at home. Oddly enough, the Seahawks have been a much better road team than they've been a home team over the last year and a half. But I think here they figure it out, and I think they cover. So I will take the Seahawks minus 3.5. And I actually love the under 40.5. I think the Texans are going to have a lot of trouble scoring any points. They might get some, but I think this under looks really nice to me. Both defenses are good. But the Texans, I think, are going to have a lot of trouble. And at the end of the day, this is just one of those spots where I really like the under in this one as well. So give me the Seahawks minus the 3.5 and the under 40.5 points. All right, guys, that's going to do it for our picks. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you guys share it with a friend. Hit the like and subscribe for me. It's a lot of fun making these videos, and obviously, hopefully, we can have a great Week 7 in the NFL. We have NBA starting up about a week from now, a little less than a week from now. Looking forward to that. That is our bread and butter here at the channel. So obviously, I'm gearing up for that and excited about the NBA season as well. All right, guys, that is going to do it for me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and we will catch you guys all next time. Peace out.